John's story is really quite something, isn't it? I mean, imagine being that close to Jesus.
Right. Walking with him every day, hearing him teach.
Yeah, and even, resting your head on him at the Last Supper. That's the John most people think of, the apostle of love.
That's definitely the picture of his later life. Absolutely. A
Yeah.
powerful one. But it's so important to remember that man, the one who wrote God is love, well, he didn't start out that way.
Exactly. That's the fascinating part. The same guy, the one who gave us those words, he and his brother James had this nickname from Jesus, Sons of Thunder.
Mm-hmm. Quite a contrast.
So how does that fiery young man turn into the apostle of love? That's what we're exploring today in this deep dive into who is John in the Bible.
Okay, so let's maybe start with his background. Where did he come from?
Good idea. He grew up around the Sea of Galilee, right, working with his brother James.
And their father, Zebedee, they were fishermen. And fishing back then wasn't, a quiet, contemplative job.
No way. It was tough physical work. You imagine these guys were probably pretty loud, strong, very direct people.
Hard workers, dealing with the elements, haggling over catches. Not exactly shy wallflowers.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So when Jesus calls them these robust fishermen,
It's a call to leave everything. And what's striking is how fast they respond.
instantly, Matthew tells us they just dropped their nets, left their father, left the boat, boom, followed Jesus.
That immediate commitment, that sort of all-in approach, that really speaks to John's firebrand nature, doesn't it?
It really does. That passion was there from the start. Yeah. And it didn't always come out in the best ways initially.
Well, it certainly didn't. Remember that incident with the Samaritan?
Oh, yeah. The village that rejected Jesus.
Right. And John and James, what's their reaction? Not disappointment, not sadness.
They want to call down fire, like actual fire from heaven to wipe them out.
It's pretty intense. You can't easily picture the later John saying that.
It really highlights the journey, the transformation. And Jesus' response is key, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. He rebukes them. He says, basically, that's not what I'm about. I came to save lives, not destroy them.
A massive lesson for John right there about God's real mission.
A definite turning point, you'd think. But even with that temper, that intensity, John had this incredibly special relationship with Jesus.
He really did. He was in that inner circle, wasn't he? Peter, James, and John.
Mm-hmm. Present for the big moments, the transfiguration, Gethsemane.
And like we said, leaning on Jesus at the Last Supper, that kind of intimacy.
It speaks volumes. And then maybe the most profound example at the cross.
Right. Jesus looks down and tells John, "Behold your mother," and tells Mary, "Behold your son." He entrusts his own mother to John's care.
What greater trust could there be? And even Easter morning, you see his passion again. He literally outruns Peter to get to the empty tomb first.
Ah, yeah, that youthful energy. So despite the rough edges, there's this deep, deep connection, which makes you ask, why was he loved by Jesus so specifically? What was it about John?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Maybe. Maybe it was that very fire, that intensity. Perhaps Jesus saw that passion even when it misfired his anger.
He saw it could be channeled, that it stemmed from a deep desire to be close to him.
Exactly. A yearning for connection, a heart that burned for Jesus, even if it wasn't perfectly expressed yet. Jesus saw the potential, the love underneath the thunder.
And that potential really blossoms after Pentecost, doesn't it? The thunder changes.
It absolutely does. It's redirected. Instead of wanting divine retribution, he's boldly proclaiming the gospel.
Yeah, he gets thrown in prison with Peter, but does that stop it? Not a chance. He keeps speaking out.
And then think about his legacy in writing. 5 New Testament books.
The Gospel of John, those 3 letters, and Revelation is a huge contribution.
And what's the thread running through almost all of it?
Love, undeniably love. From John 3.1 Steen, for God so loved the world.
To 1 John, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God.
Even in Revelation, with all his visions and judgments, Jesus is presented as the Lamb. Sacrifice, mercy.
It's an incredible arc. From Son of Thunder to the Apostle of Love.
And that tradition about him when he was very old, exiled on Patmos.
Right, just repeating, little children love one another.
And when asked why, he'd say, it is the Lord's command, and if this only is done, it is enough.
Wow. Just drills down to the absolute core. But, when we look at those 5 books, it helps to think about who John was writing to. The audience matters.
It really does shape the message. So the Gospel of John, who is that for?
Well, John himself tells us near the end. He says he wrote these things so that you, meaning everyone, the world, might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God.
And have life in his name. So a broad audience, Jews, Gentiles. He includes details for everyone.
Right, it's evangelistic in its purpose. Then you get to 1 John.
That feels different, more personal. He calls them my dear children.
Exactly. It sounds like he's writing to believers he knows well, probably a church or group of churches he oversees. And the big issue there...
Self-teachers, right? People denying Jesus really came in the flesh.
Precisely. He's warning them, grounding them in the truth about who Jesus really is, fully God and fully human, protecting the flock.
Okay, and 2 John. That one's even more specific.
Yeah, addressed to the chosen lady and her children. Most think that's symbolic for a specific local church.
And the warning is similar, about deception.
Very similar. He warns them not to welcome or even greet false teachers because that would mean participating in their wicked work. It's quite stern.
The 3 John is different again. A personal note.
To his friend Gaius, praising him for showing hospitality to traveling Christian workers. It's a beautiful little snapshot of practical love and support in the early church.
So good. Okay, finally, Revelation. Who gets that?
That's sent to 7 specific churches in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, real churches facing real persecution.
So the message there is encouragement, hope.
Definitely. Hope in the midst of suffering, assurance of Christ's ultimate victory, calling them to persevere. Understanding the audience for each book is just so key to grasping John's message.
Absolutely. So let's zoom in on his gospel again. You mentioned it presents Christ differently than, say, Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
It really does. While they all show Jesus' divinity, John puts it front and center from the very first verse. He wants you to know right away, this is God we're talking about.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. No messing around.
Exactly. He establishes Jesus' eternal preexistence, his role as the creator alongside the Father. It's incredibly profound.
And then the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. That word dwelling. Skinu in Greek.
Right. It means he tabernacled or pitched his tent among us. It deliberately echoes the Old Testament tabernacle where God's presence dwelled.
So, Emmanuel, God with us, literally camping out with humanity. That's a core part of understanding who is John in the Bible and how he saw Jesus.
Absolutely. And then John records those 7 amazing I am statements of Jesus.
Which aren't just descriptions, they're claims to divinity, aren't they? Echoing God's name, I am, WHO, I am, revealed to Moses.
Precisely. I am the bread of life, the light of the world, the gate, the good shepherd.
The resurrection and the life, the way, the truth, and the life, the true vine. Each one shows who Jesus is and what he provides.
And John pairs these claims with 7 specific miracles, which he calls signs.
Not just wonders, but signs pointing to who Jesus is.
Exactly. Turning water to wine power over nature. Healing the official sun power over distance and sickness. Healing the paralytic power over long-term affliction. Feeding the 5,000 creative power. Walking on water power over natural laws. Healing the blind man power over congenital disability.
And raising Lazarus, power over death itself. These signs scream divinity.
They really do. And John also includes moments where Jesus' claims are understood perfectly well by his opponents, when he calls God his Father in a way that implies equality.
They pick up stones, they accuse him of blasphemy because they know he's claiming to be God.
Right. Or when he knows all about Nathanael before meeting him, that's omniscience. When he accepts worship. When he says, before Abraham was born, I am, claiming eternal existence. John piles up the evidence.
And that title, Lamb of God, which John the Baptist uses right at the start of the gospel.
So significant. It connects Jesus to the Passover sacrifice, to Isaiah's suffering servant.
And ultimately to the victorious Lamb in Revelation. John weaves that theme throughout.
And finally, the resurrection accounts in John. They feel so real, so grounded.
You have the little details, the folded face cloth in the tomb, not just thrown aside, but neatly folded.
Suggesting calmness, order, intention, not a rushed grave robbery.
And Thomas, insisting he needs to touch the wounds.
And Jesus invites him to. It's such a physical, tangible confirmation of the bodily resurrection. And then Jesus cooking breakfast on the beach for them.
I love that part. It's so normal, in a way, the resurrected Lord making breakfast. It grounds the whole incredible event.
It really does. John's account is powerfully convincing.
So looking back at John's whole life, wow, that journey from son of thunder to apostle of love is just remarkable.
It truly is. It tells us so much about Jesus' power to transform us, doesn't it? He takes our rough edges, our intense passions.
And refines them, shapes them for his purpose. It shows that being close to Jesus really does change you deep down.
And John's message ultimately is that this transformative love of God is for everyone, no matter where you start from.
As Bible believers, we really value John's testimony. His writings give us such a clear, profound look at who Jesus is, the depth of his love. We believe this is God's word he's giving us.
Absolutely. And that's why we trust it over, just human traditions or interpretations that might water it down.
Which is why it's so vital for you, listening, to engage with it yourself. Don't just take our word for it or anyone else's.
Read it for yourself. Dig into who is John in the Bible through his own words. Encounter Jesus in the pages of John's gospel.
And think about John's courage, too. When things got tough, when Jesus was arrested, John did not hide like the others.
He was there, at the foot of the cross. That takes incredible loyalty and bravery.
He stood firm, and he kept serving God boldly for the rest of his long life.
It's clear why Jesus loved him. That love transformed John, and it's the same love that's offered to us today. It can change us too.
So here's something to think about. What's the fire in you? We all have passions, intensities. How could God redirect your fire, like he did John's, towards love and serving him?
That's a great question to reflect on, a real challenge.
Well, we've covered a lot today, really digging into who was John in the Bible, his incredible life, his writings.
It's been good. John's perspective is just so rich.
We hope this deep dive has been helpful for you. If you found this look at who is John in the Bible insightful, maybe give us a like or leave a comment.
Yeah, share your thoughts. What stands out to you about John?
And we really do encourage you spend some time in John's writings yourself. Get to know the Jesus that John knew and loved so deeply.
There's nothing quite like it.